Perfect. So good morning, everybody. We're right at 10 o'clock, so I think we will get started. Don't need a speaker, so I don't need to let that in, but it's okay. So anyways, I just want to welcome you to today. We are really happy to have Tracy Arno. She is the founder and CEO of Essence Recruitment based out of Saskatoon. So just so you know, this session will be recorded, just so we can share it with anyone who registered and then was not able to make it today. To begin with, I just want to acknowledge that we are coming to you from the land of Treaty 2, Treaty 4, Treaty 6, and the homeland of the Métis. So my name is Jessica Rorson, and I'm the program manager for this provincial-wide Community Futures webinar series. We're just starting up our third year now, which seems crazy. So this is our third year of this. We've been offering these sessions monthly now, and we've covered a range of topics, but we have not yet had Tracy on, so we're excited to talk about recruiting. If you're not at all familiar with Community Futures, they are a national program, and the hosting office today is Sunrise Community Futures, and Andrea, the general manager, is on the call today, and she is based out of Weyburn, Saskatchewan. So Community Futures, like I said, is a federal program, and there's 267 offices across the country, and their mission is to offer loans, advice, support to anyone who is thinking about starting a business in rural communities across the country. We really welcome you to check out the website after. We host a variety of different training events throughout the year, as well as there are lots of resources if you're thinking about starting a business or if you're needing financing for your upcoming project. So with that all being said, Tracy has a lot of content to cover, and so we'll get started. So thank you, Tracy.
Yes, well, and thank you everyone for for having me today. So Essence Recruitment, sorry, is a boutique recruitment firm here in Saskatchewan. We have our head office in Saskatoon and actually expanded into Calgary and have a satellite office in Calgary. But we actually now have been supporting not-for-profits and small to medium-sized businesses from all the way from New Brunswick to BC. So we, additionally, with Essence, we have a recruitment training program for small to medium-sized businesses and not-for-profits to kind of teach them on how to recruit on the side of their desk. So someone who doesn't necessarily have that HR or maybe the know-how of how to recruit, because there's unlike us, there's not a lot of people that say that they love to recruit. There's only kind of a few of us crazy ones that love to do it. So we are here to also just help people give them tips and tricks on how to recruit. So we do have a one-day program that I'm going to try to get into an hour here. And I talk a lot because I get really passionate. So please, just if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll try to slow down. And I'm just taking some high level points and bringing it in today. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And just please, if someone just can put up their hand and stop, I will stop in the middle to clarify or to just go in further detail. With that, I'm going to, can I have the ability to share my screen?
Yeah, so I did allow you to.
Oh, you did. Okay, that's right.
Let me just,
oops. Okay.
You might have to just.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see, okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, so now I just, with my second screen, my technology here. So I just want to make sure that we get to can you see the next slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so today, we're going to just kind of high level go over a few things. So like, what does talent attraction really mean? And two key things that I have said for a long time is that HR and marketing are now one, because the way that people can seek out and look for employment and employers, we really talk about employer brand and being an employer of choice. Something that is very, very important to Essence is culture fit. Workplace culture. fit and culture is essentially the root of Essence's success. When we started Essence almost 14 years ago, it's the thought is someone can do the job, but do you want them to do the job, and do they want to do the job, to ensure that aligns. So we're going to really get into workplace culture and culture fit. And then I picked some strategies that we could use that are kind of more of the kind of top strategies in today's world. We will talk about job boards, but we'll talk about other strategies that you can use other than traditional job boards, and even some best practices around job boards. And then, of course, if you have any questions. So I just wanted to start off with is just really talking about recruitment in general. So it has not changed in decades. 50% of new hires fail. And it really just has essentially, that rate has not changed. I even just checked it like 6 months ago. And we take about like a North American kind of stat, which does include Canada. We really do try to, with a lot of our stats, really try to stay local to home, but for sure in the Canada, across Canada. Sometimes though, we could go across North America just to see if there's differences between the US and Canada. But in this stat, it's not. 50% of new hires fail. And essentially, it's because of the plan. And I encourage people as I'm talking to reflect on what they actually do and how it may, or how there could be some key points that maybe you can just change a few little key points. Or maybe there's some best practices that I don't have right now that I would love to hear what you do. But what is really why 50%, why new hires fails? Because there's no measurable targets. You don't really have an outcome. You don't understand what the outcome is or what the success of a good recruit would be. You don't define your target group. So generally, like such as job boards, you just kind of throw it out there and you're not really honing your attention to who you really need. You really don't understand actually who a good fit and what the qualifications could be. Your employer brand, what does it look like out there on the perception of a candidate's experience or an applicant's experience and their perception? What do you look like to them? Your interview process, sorry, including your team that should be relevant to this new hire. Are they the right people in the room? And then being and I would say only using social media or only using job boards, only having one method of recruitment. So you're not actually getting the full scope of really where the talent is. And then sometimes such as gut or prejudice or bias, screw up your decision. So you don't do a fulsome recruitment process, but you have like little pieces here or there. So for example, the biggest one would be is when you see them for like first impression, you're like, I didn't have a good connection. You don't do a fulsome uncover interview process and you just decide that they're not a right fit, or that on the vice versa, you both like baseball. So you hire that person and you felt like you had a good connection with them, but you didn't do the due diligence of the entire interview process. Another key one, especially in our local markets, are like I hire friends because they did a really good job for them or they like them, but we don't do the due diligence of going through a fulsome recruitment and interview process. So I just want to get into talent attraction. So our theory is, and a recruitment firm or not, like I think, and I would say that if you're a small company, you're a not-for-profit, it's all about your never stop recruiting. It's kind of like you're never stop selling for your company. You're never stop recruiting. And so the goal is always, and I would say like always to have a pipeline. So what essentially, if you don't have systems in place, so when you are recruiting and you have where you keep your resumes, where are you keeping, what do you do? Like when you think about when you're selling, right, you might have like a database, a CRM, or you might even have business cards on the side. So when you need them or want to talk to them or build a relationship, you have a process. This is the exact same thing as recruitment. So recruitment is actually selling. Like it is like you're always building a network. The goal would be is that when you are ready to hire someone, that you have a network of people that you can go to first. So you're not always starting from scratch from a job board. So an example would even be is that, let's say a year ago, you were recruiting for a role. You got 25 applicants. What did you do with the 24 applicants that you didn't hire at that time? Do you keep them in a database for future, or did you just discard them? Generally, small to medium-sized businesses and not-for-profits don't have the processes or the systems to keep them for future use. I would say figure out a way to be able to use the people that you will already engage in your organization. So just to top it off, just so you're aware, I'm always trying to put in the other side. So in the applicant's perspective. So what are they seeing when they're applying for a job? What are they looking for in an organization? What is kind of prompting them to move on to another organization where they are right now? And so these are kind of some of the best practices. And it's interesting, I just had this conversation with a client this morning. And yes, of course, everybody wants fair pay. That is, compensation is always a challenge. We do know that, and to stay competitive in the market. But there are other things, what they are looking for, and are starting to even ask through the interview process, is work-life balance. And that can be a conversation that could take up 3 hours today. But in reality, everyone has to have a definition about what work-life balance is. And I would encourage, when someone says, you know, what are you looking for? And they say work-life balance. Well, what does that mean to you? Because some people are like, I just don't want to I don't want to, if my daughter's sick, I want to stay at home. I don't want to have to take a day off to go to a doctor's appointment. I want to be able to go. I want to be able to, just, it could be simple as that. And then there are some people that are like, I need Fridays off. But that definition, I mean, the answer is so different. We just don't do a good job of clarifying that. So if you're saying you're offering work-life balance, what is your definition of work-life balance? And ensure that your applicants are in line, that you guys have the same meaning of work-life balance, or you talk through it to make sure it meets both expectations. Trust and respect, transparency and honesty. They just want to know, a culture of transparency is a best practice for workplace culture, because essentially what is happening is that they want to have impact in their role, and they want to understand if they're going to go to work now, like, they're going to work because they want to be there. And so that means they have to understand what the impact of their role is and what that means in the organization. So there, of course, as business owners, there's lots of things going on. You can't necessarily tell the employees everything that's happening. But if you can be as transparent as possible, and especially on how it's impacting their role and the company culture through either meetings, town halls, communications, that's what they're looking for. Which brings me into clear goals and expectations and meaningful work. They want to know that they're doing a good job. And if they're not doing a good job, they also want to know that, because they want to know on how they can improve. So gone are the days of performance reviews that only happen once a year, and you're talking about what happened last year. What they want to know is, where am I right now, and how can I give impact into the future? So having those clear goals and what would be the next step to get to the next goal, and what are the things that they can do to improve, is they want that information. Sometimes they don't know that they want that, but once they start having those conversations, they sure appreciate it. With the generations, right? We have 5 generations still in the workplace. As we get through the generations, you got to realize that the last 2 generations have information at their fingertips. They don't know what it's like not to have quick and instant information and impact. So they want that within their jobs. So they want accountability and they want responsibility, probably way too quickly than they actually should. But giving them goals on how they can get there and understand on how they can grow will give them their own accountability and responsibility to grow themselves. Recognition and praise, which of course we all want to know that we're doing a good job, and professional development, which again just kind of speaks to what I was talking to before. So that brings us into, as we're recruiting, we have 2 different types, and I just want to kind of bring this high level, but we have 2 types of people that are looking for jobs. We have the active seeker. So the active seeker is the person that is looking for a job. So maybe they're not getting what they want right now. Maybe they were laid off. Maybe they moved. Maybe they got more education. Whatever the reason is, they're looking for a job. And so they are the ones that are taking the time and effort to go out and look for a job. So they're active. And that means that they're going on job boards, they're looking at social media, that they're like telling their friends, like they're ready to move, which means when you work with an active seeker, so someone with a job board, you need to move quickly. So if you're using job boards as your way to recruit people, then you need to pay attention on a daily basis, because the world is competitive. We can't wait 2-3 weeks to contact these people. They've already got a job from somebody else. A passive seeker, and that's generally in recruitment firms, that's what we're looking for. Like, we're looking for the people that are actively working. They're in their roles, but we're seeking them out for people who would listen to opportunities. These people, though, are more particular about what would be the next step, because they actually aren't looking necessarily for a job. They're open to opportunities, but it really has to align with the fit, the culture, their career alignment, their career expectations. So talking, it's more about having the whole process changes because you're having more of a conversation about what's in it for them. They're also between an active seeker and a passive seeker. Active seekers tend not to do as much due diligence on like fit, culture. They might be at the point that just need a job. So we need to remember that is where really their commitment is, whereas passive seekers tend to be more committed, because if they're moving, it's got to be the right fit for them. I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I would think that the passive seeker, there would be a lot more negotiating in those roles, but the active seeker, you could maybe, get them under the radar a little bit, like in terms of compensation.
Well, and more of, they're just, like not even just compensation in the role itself, right? Like they're not going to be as particular and have a bigger checklist on what they would be looking for. So, but the thing is though, because there's a couple risks with that, right? First of all, the first risk is that they're not necessarily doing their due diligence accurately. So we need to make sure on our side that we are still presenting all the information about what this role is, and what they can expect. So if it's not a fit for them, we can kind of talk them out of it instead of having been like, this isn't what we thought it was going to be. 3 months later, we're starting again. And the second risk is that they will move quickly, right? So, you might have posted a job on Monday. By Friday, they might already have a job, right? Because they're continually interviewing, they're looking at different opportunities. Like, it is right now their job to find a job.
They need a job. Yeah.
Okay, so how are people finding jobs? So just so you're aware, and I'm always trying to point in on what are the candidates doing, like what's happening on the other side of this partnership, right? So if you're to Google, and that's the thing, everyone is Googling, or now they're using AI. So whatever their methods are, it's at their fingertips and someone is giving them information. So if you Google how to find a job, the top 3 things that they're saying is pick a job board that works for you, pick key search words, titles, companies, key search words, and research the company. So we're going to get into this about what does that mean. But those are the 3 top things. There's lots of things that they're saying, but the 3 top things are really like, do your research. Like, gone are the days that you can kind of just go, remember, like, well, maybe not in this group, but I remember the days when there was like the Star Phoenix, you would open it up, the help wanted ads were here, and on Wednesdays and Saturdays, executive jobs are here. When job boards became electronic, it was very easy to scroll through, look for like what job came up that day. Now they're just inundated, and money talks. So how these job boards are, like how Google is, people are paying to play. So it's harder for a person to find a job ad than it's ever been before. It gets a lot of complicated because everything is around key search words and about reputation. So you have to do some homework. And as an applicant, you have to keep, okay, what are the jobs that I want? Operations manager, yard cleaner, like warehouse worker, whatever it might be, you're picking those words to search. So if you have some funny titles in your company, and we'll get into this, I would recommend taking those away and go to more traditional titles. and they are researching. So as you are researching them, and they're looking to see if you are a good employer to work for. So homework from this today is I would recommend that you Google yourself as you were an applicant and see what they see. First of all, can they find you? And if they can find you, what are you saying about yourself, and what are others saying about you? So the number is decreasing. 41% of their jobs still found. I mean, online job boards are still number one, absolutely, but the number is decreasing for other methods. But out of those 41%, 61% of those people said that they had job alerts. So if you are doing a job board or whatever that might be, so for example, Indeed, if you are only doing the free version, you are not being found. When you start paying for the ad, and depending what you pay for, you can now put alerts out. So then people just have it, so they register for the alerts and it comes to them. And that's because it's simplifying them. It's hard to find a job. It's very stressful for them to find a job. It's very difficult, as I mentioned, to kind of go onto the internet and try to find the role for them. So if they can get help, such as, these job alerts coming to their emails, that's helpful. Networking. So, and 25%. It's who you know, right? Like
You
being
just,
through.
sorry, Tracy, you just cut out a smidge. Do you
Oh,
want to
okay.
start that sentence again?
The 25% of networking. I'll start from there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's great.
Okay, so 25% of people found from networking meaning who do you know? So is it like from a referral? Is it from an event? Were you at a place where there was an opportunity that you had a conversation with somebody? But that's where they found it was not from a job board, but from someone from the side giving them the information. 79% of job applicants use social media. So they're not using job boards. They're finding them complicated. They're finding them hard to use and takes up a lot of their time. So they are going to the social media route. So, and then 73% of millennials, 18 to 34, found their last position through social media. So, yeah. So, so we'll talk about social media in general today. What does that mean? Any questions? We're good? Okay. Okay, so I want to talk about the passive seeker. I mean, so when the talent attraction, how we're always, when I'm saying want to recruit, I know that we always are pretty reactive, like someone leaves, we put up a job ad, we recruit for that person. I'm trying to encourage people to become like the networker, like become the person, like become the recruiter that is a passive seeker. It does not have to be your full-time job. It's just like part of changing your strategy for just putting up job boards, I would say. So like being out in front of them. So networking, like chat about the opportunities that you have. Share your job openings on Facebook. Write engaging job descriptions, establish an online presence, like logo recognition, referrals. Like you just kind of have to be out there is what I'm saying is that, and you have to be consistent. What you want people to do is people to recognize your company. And so that's why logo recognition is actually very important. Like when people recognize your logo, they might not recognize your name. So your brand strategy, this is all bringing me into the brand piece, but your brand is really important in recruitment. So as like when I'm saying the passive seeker, like when we are trying to reach out to people and letting them know about the opportunities that we have, we can't just go to a job board and post it and say, okay, here we go. We need to market the role in several different avenues. So you think about your vendors, you think about the partnerships you have, think about the associations that you're with. Like you have to bring out that you have this opportunity because no one has time to go see what you're doing, right? They have enough, they're too busy in their own lives. It's up to you to like sell this opportunity. So what you're doing is the more information that you're giving or the more people that you're letting know about the opportunity. It's going to the person that's sitting at their desk and saying, I don't like where I am right now. I heard about this role, right? So they're not looking at a job board, but it passed their desk and they're like, wow, maybe I want to hear about this. So more about the people that are just not actively looking for a job. Any questions about that? I know I'm going really high level, so I'm just being careful about if it's confusing or not.
No, I think personally, I think it's wise to do what you're saying, because those job boards, especially when you have to create a profile and it takes forever and you don't know who the recruiter is and who the business actually is looking for the person. And now all of a sudden you're connected to 15 different job boards. And I
Yeah.
mean, if you can just click, apply, done,
It's much easier.
much
Or
easier.
if you knew someone or you trust people, right?
Yes.
It will come up in here. So
Well, and
just a
as
thought
somebody
of-
who's,
Yeah.
sorry, as somebody who has, recruited and hired many times, both, with where I am now and in the past, I find that you don't necessarily reach the right people right away. If some of the, I guess, maybe more popular forums or more recognized, you just get bombarded with a bunch of applications that aren't even legitimate, right? So I think that, making sure that you have the right place, that you're looking in the right place is important, and reaching the right people.
Right. And that's like your networks, right? Like, so, and they will know you, right? So this all kind of comes together at the end. So it's all going to kind of come in different perspectives, but I just wanted to bring in the front because I want to encourage people to have the kind of the philosophy of always recruiting and not just going to job boards and looking for people that are passive seekers, because as mentioned before, the risk is smaller because you're honing in on a partnership there that your expectations and their career alignment matches, right? So I guess as Jessica mentioned, they'll negotiate with you more, but it's because they want a career and they want to stay there.
I mean, having done recruiting also in the past, there's so many people who you get these overseas applications, so
Yeah.
many. I
Yeah.
mean, and you can't avoid it, but I think that if you're networking to your like-minded people who are already working within that same industry, you're less likely to maybe get,
My goal would be is that you never use a job board again. Like if
Yeah.
you didn't have to use a job board, imagine like when we use job boards, I'm just like, okay, we'll do this, but we use it more from a marketing perspective than we ever think that we're going to get the right applicants. And then I just always say to the girls, like, if you can spend the time outreaching to maybe to people in your network, then going through hundreds of applicants that aren't qualified, then it might be a better use of your time and a better outcome. You only need one good one. You don't need, right? Like you need one good one that meets your requirements. Okay, so going into employer brand and being employer of choice, as I mentioned, like it's interesting in Saskatchewan, the last two jobs that are ever hired are HR, or your people and culture person, I would say, and branding, right? Your marketing person, salespeople, accountants, lawyers, all of those people are on hand. But the person who focuses on your people and the person that focuses on your brand always go to the owner. Like it always goes to the owner because simply we can't afford it. And second of all, it's like a chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken. Like where do we use our resources? So they're always the last two roles that should be hired, but essentially, like I would take those people first before I would hire a salesperson, because you can't have just of the whole circle, right? We can have a conversation about what that means, but somehow, some way, you need to make sure that you have a focus on your humans and you have someone who can focus on your brand to retain, to attract and retain talent. And no matter what everyone says, we are still in a very competitive market. We have one of the lowest unemployment rates in Canada. And when it does fluctuate a little bit, but with every industry, it's hard to find top talent. And especially when you start building your leadership team, it gets less and less. So why is having a strong brand important? So on the candidate's perspective, remember, they're Googling you. And so when people are deciding to apply for a job, 84% of seekers say the reputation of the company, of the employer, is important. So if you don't have a good reputation, they're not applying to your job. So, and it is, and I know that it seems expensive, and I know that it takes time, but essentially, when you think about it, hiring a bad hire or someone leaving is 3 to 5 times the amount of their salary. So when you think about it, you're putting your funding in the wrong spot if you don't have the right fit for your organization. So, what I would say, I had about 9 slides on branding and I took them out due to time, but there is something that I would say. With your with your employer brand, I really do encourage you to Google yourself and see what you look like out in the public eye. So when you look at reviews, so look at your Google reviews, look at your Indeed reviews, because a lot of people are going to Indeed, if that's where you post ads. Look at your Facebook reviews. Then go through your social media and look at what does your social media say? Does it say anything about your humans, or does it just all about the services that you provide? So one thing that employees, and see how you appreciate employees. So if you don't have anything about your employees, they get the message that you don't care for your employees. So just keep in mind the reputation of your organization and how you treat your employees is going to give you a one-up if you have an employee-centric culture and you have a good brand. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say with your website, a lot of times we focus on our websites on the services that we provide or the products that we sell. And then we have this little small spot where you can apply for a job. And it says nothing about your humans anywhere. It only just talks about what your services are or what your products are. I would take a look at that. And if you were a person, go on to the candidate side and say, okay, if I wanted to apply to your company, how hard would it be to apply to your organization? And especially on a whim. Maybe they just want to put their application in there just for future roles. Can they do that? And how hard is it to upload a resume onto your website? Do you even have that availability? And is it easy to find? Because we're so focused on what we do, we forget about the humans behind it that actually make it happen. So we need them. So make it easy for them to be part of your organization. Okay, so workplace culture. Companies sink or swim with their internal culture. A bad hire can hugely affect morale, productivity, and ultimately the bottom line. So when you are recruiting, we want to make sure that we're doing a good process. So keep in mind, of the 50% of people that fail, having a good recruitment process is essential to the foundation to ensure that you have a good culture. Because if you're rotating through employees, you can't have a good employee culture because there's no one that's staying there to actually be the ambassadors of your culture. So you want to make sure that you are able to retain employees that match, that align with the culture that you're looking for, that you want to lead, and then that are the people that you're hiring. So employee-centric cultures come all the time. Like, that's just lingo. We have tons of blogs on it. You can take a look at even all our blogs. But when we stopped being a top-down organization and a bottom-up organization, when organizations do that, they are making an employee-centric culture. So thinking about what's happening on the front line first before you make a decision is very important. So as we remember, like, people want impact, right? They want to be part of the organization, and that includes your front line. So making decisions that include the entire company also includes starting from the bottom and working yourself up. So they welcome open communication, they encourage feedback, they want safety. So of course, we don't want to get hurt, but even mentally, right? Like, mental wellness is a huge component of a workplace today and important to employees. And innovation, so people to be free. So organizations that even, it doesn't have to be costly, but it has to do around even conversations about how can we always be better and bringing everyone together to do that. They just recognize that employees are the reason that they are where they are and how they're going to make their business plan successful. So I'm not, if you think about business plans and think about your career, about when you've been part of an organization, like when someone makes the decision for you and pounds down, but they've never asked you what actually is happening within your department or within your role or within your division. But they respect the knowledge and information that you're giving them so they can make good decisions, and they give you the business plan so you understand where your part of the organization is, are totally two different things, right? Having that communication or not. Yeah, and oh, look at I thought it was so important that I actually accidentally put it in here twice, but so when companies, so this is like to retain employees, so it was getting very costly, right? Like as time was kind of coming on in the last 5 to 7 years, and take COVID out of it, but like it has been changing. So when we started in 2011, we were training our clients to go to an employee-centered culture, not to have the dictatorship, the traditional dictatorship down type of organization. Saskatchewan actually does a really good job of this. Bigger centers are having a hard time, especially in corporate scenarios. But with us being nimble as small to medium-sized businesses and not-for-profits, we can, if we treat humans as our biggest assets, it can help the organization for sure. And at the end of it, actually, and it's proven the bottom line actually increases if you do this. So when we're talking about, and this is why I wanted to bring in this work-life balance. So it is not what they really want when we talk about work-life balance. It's not about necessarily like everyone's thinking, okay, well, like I want to have the hybrid scenario is a touchy subject still, right? Like the remote, not so much, hybrid still a little bit touchy. What does work-life balance? What does flexibility mean? But in reality, they want to break away from work when they can break away from work. So when they go to their kids' hockey games or when they are hanging out with their friends on a Friday night, that work is not at the back of their mind. So they can separate the both. So when they're at work, you give them the respect that they're going to work, but then you are able to shut off their work and let them have their home life. Work has always kind of been like trickling down into humans' lives, like into their personal life, and it's affecting the balance of their personal and their work. What COVID has taught us is that people are not tolerable about this anymore. They do not want to go, they are not taking emails at night. They don't want to go to sponsored dinners. Like they don't want to spend time with you after hours. Like, and more people are complaining about that they don't want to do after work events. They just spent 8 hours with you. Now they want to spend it with their family. So we need to give them the space, and they appreciate it, and they will stay with you if you give them the space that they want and have their personal life is their personal life and their home life. So not bringing their work from home, and that also then means not a stressful scenario at work that is eating up their nights. Yes, it happens. It always happens, but it shouldn't be the majority of their time. So that's how we have to remember when they're in their work, what is enough work when they're at work. Okay, going into planning. This is a huge piece. Nobody plans. We always do it on the side of the desk. We don't have time for this. We are working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and you hate recruitment. So you're like, it's literally on the side of your desk. You don't want to do it. You just get it done. You throw up a job ad. You hope that you get the right applicant in, and you just kind of go through the steps. But in reality, we're not thinking of the end first. And my suggestion to everyone, when you're recruiting seasonal work, part-time work, your leadership team, you have to have a plan. How long that plan changes, depending on the role, the depth of it changes because of the role, but you have to have the end in mind. So you will, again, lose the candidate's interest because you have to keep of their experience in mind. They are your ambassadors. People who have a bad employee, have a bad experience while applying for a job will eat you up and spit you out into the social media world. Like they will be very negative about you. The goal is that someone who even doesn't get the job, they were like, so appreciative of how you treated them that they still become your brand ambassador. Because we don't plan and because we don't have time to do this properly, or because we just either don't know or we don't like doing it, the first person that actually feels that are your applicants. So if you have a planning process and stay to it, it will help you organize yourself through the process, even if you don't have time or don't want to do it. So, yeah, so, and then also the other key element here is because if you don't plan, you probably don't have a good interview guide. So you're not doing your due diligence and ensuring you're hiring the right person. So that's why the planning process is so important. So these are just some steps that I would suggest. So don't pull out the old dusty job description and just post it. Like, take a look at it and pull out whatever you might have. And if you don't have anything, you should be creating one. And from there, what you need to do is like, is this going to fill the gaps that we need right now? Is this job description accurate to what I'm actually looking for? Because 80% of job descriptions are not accurate. And that's because nobody takes the time to think about, what am I really looking for? Even if I'm rehiring a role, is it the same role? So I would encourage that you take that time to review, what am I looking for? And is this accurate? So identify your target group. As you were mentioning before, Jessica, you throw it out to the world, but are you actually getting to the people that you need to? So who is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for general laborers? Well, where are general laborers? Like where's the right spot for them? Are you looking for an administrative assistant? Well, where are those humans? Like, am I attracting the right people? Am I targeting the right group? And then you have to have a strategy. So I would encourage that not just one component, so just not one job board is your way to go. You should have 2 to 3 different alternatives on how you're going to find these how you're going to find these people. And then how are you going to contact them? So funny thing is, I have someone that just contacts people, that's all they do. Because of age group or where they are in their profession, we're not being prejudiced, but we do know some people don't answer the phone, right? They only answer text. Some people, if we think we leave a message, that's good. No, there's many people, because of scams, many people don't answer the phone. So how else are we getting a hold of them? Do we email them? Do we text them? Do we send a message through the job board? Like, we need to have a communications plan with them. And when they respond to you, like, you should be responding within 24 hours, not 3 weeks later. So we need to make sure, how are we contacting them and when are we contacting them? And then have a plan, when, where, and how. So always think about the end result. I need someone to start on June 1st. That means I need to do interviews from May 15th to May 30th. I got to block it in my schedule. I need to make sure I have a clean and safe space, and who is going to be there. If you don't think of that ahead, what happens is you get an applicant and then you look at your calendar and you're like, just kidding, I don't have time for 6 more weeks. And now I can't, now I'm going to miss a deadline of when I need someone to hire. And also, I'm on vacation from July 14th, from July 21st. When can I train them? Like, all of these components come into play. So start with the end result. What day do you want them started? And then you work backwards and then plan it through your calendar. Other things you got to think of, do you have a budget for this? Probably not, but so how else are you going to get out there? Some job boards like LinkedIn is extremely expensive, right? So how else are we going to get, like, if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. So how else are we going to be able to recruit? Make sure that you have a solid job ad and a solid job description. They're not the same. The ad is to attract people. The job description tells you what they're actually going to be doing. Have a recruitment strategy, communication plan, interview schedule, and assessments, background checks. Make sure that you're doing them. People think that reference checks are a joke and that they actually don't need it and no one ever gives a bad reference. I will tell you, we get a bad reference a week. So I will say that you should do your due diligence and make sure that you're doing the accurate background checks. And we could talk in depth who those humans are, but Okay, I think I talked about all of this already, just some of the timeline tips here. I'm just kind of watching the time. Okay, let's get into the strategies. So I only picked a few just to chat about, and I'm going to be talking about them pretty high level because we are like quarter to 10 here. So I just want to, or quarter to 11. So I just want to make sure of everyone's time. There is a good old job boards. I'm like, as you know, people still are finding jobs on job boards. And we'll talk about them for sure, because they shouldn't go, you should not use them, but I wouldn't just use them as the only way that I would be recruiting. But again, my goal would be is that you never had to use a job board. Anyways, okay, so short and sweet. So gone are the days of, okay, so you are attracting people here. So long job descriptions, you get 3 seconds to get their attention before they're scrolling down to the next. So 3 seconds isn't actually like 3 seconds is nothing when they're scrolling, right? So you need to have done something to make sure that they are going to read what you're looking for. So the goal is that the ad is about the story. So when they look at the ad, that they're like, that's me. That's the company I want to work for. That's the job that I want. That's where I'll be fulfilled. That's the goal. So keep it short, 300 to 400 words. And even now, I would say this stat is from 2020 because this seems wordy and this is 300 words. A job title must be clear, direct, and specific. This is where we get into the key search words. So people recognize I'm an operations manager. I'm a project manager. I'm an inside salesperson. I'm a customer service agent. When people start going like these funny workplace ambassador, like no one's Googling that word, right? So you're losing your ad, right? Like, so people are still traditional about job titles, and it is fun inside to make the culture like fun, like in your titles are fun and it represents you better. And but in reality, like they have a list of words that they're seeking and they're pretty traditional. So just keep that in mind that even if your title is fun and exciting, make sure when you're doing a job ad, it's pretty traditional so people can find you. Sell the opportunity, why and who. Who are you? Tell your story and say why. Like you got to tell them what's in it for you when you work for me. Sell the company. Again, the brand. Why is the company? Like, who is the company? What are you all about? What is meaningful for you? Why is it impactful to work for your organization? This one doesn't have it, but if you can use graphics, for sure use your logo. So in some of the job boards, and especially if you don't pay for them, you won't be able to give your logo. People recognize your organization by your logo. You will get more engagement if you can have your logo on the job ad. Be clear about the application process. The biggest complaint that candidates have is they're like, I have no idea. I have no idea if they have my application. Nobody ever gets back to me. I don't know when this job is open. Why is it and they're like, I spent the time to apply to the job. Why can't you give me some information about what's happening in the process? This should be a partnership. So either on the bottom, you have like the timeline date, you do the traditional, like we're only contacting those who apply. But make sure everybody knows that they're like, have some type of bounce back of like, thanks. I really appreciate that you applied. We are only contacting those who are selected, but make sure they know it got to you. Because that's, sorry. That's one thing that they're complaining about. They're like, that company doesn't care about me. I'll never apply there again. And they're telling their friends that too. So just make sure you're courteous to the application process and make it simple. So timelines, sorry, easy to apply timelines and who you're going to be applying to. The debate, and if I was in person with you, we would have the conversation. Do you or do you not put the compensation on the job board? The debate has been, and especially for small organizations, is that they don't want their other employees to know what each person is being paid because there's literally 5 people in the company. On the other side, that's your grid. So for that particular role. Doesn't matter what everyone else is being paid because it has nothing to do with this role. So people will apply if more people apply to roles that have the total compensation, the accurate total compensation on the board. Don't put inaccurate information. Put exactly what you would pay for that role. And all the other fun things. Like, right? Like, so whatever that might be, your benefits, RSP plans, like it might be Fridays off, it might be company lunches, it might be birthday celebrations. Put all of those fun things. It is actually on here. You just can't see it on here, but all the fun things about why someone should work for you and what you're giving them. You invested in that time and money to do all of that. Be proud of it. And that's one of the things that help you with your culture. What not to do, trendy titles, buzzwords, be clear and concise. Like, and just so you're aware, also people who are creating job descriptions out of ChatGPT right now, lots of buzzwords always seem to come out. So make sure they're gone. Like cliche phrases and buzzwords. Just be clear and concise. Who are you? What's in it for them? What is the job? They want to make sure that it's not, that it is your tone and it's your brand and it makes sense, and you're probably not a, you know, a large wordy type of organization, right? Because it doesn't actually even attract them. Company specific jargon or lingo, so people have acronyms. Our customer service level 2, what does that mean? Like, how, on someone on the outside, how would they even understand what that means? So just make sure that it is clear and concise for an audience that doesn't know you. Aggressive words like you must, like the word it has lots of times, you must bring, take that must out of there. Like you're sounding very aggressive. And it sounds like it's such a hard line, which it probably isn't to begin with. Or being very assertive, or like in the words of like, you need to do everything in this role, or you have the tone of that. You need to make sure it's inviting. Speak to them like they're part of the job. So you will be part of our team doing this. As the executive assistants, we want you to contribute to the team by doing this. So it psychologically, they're like envisioning being part of that team already. Of course, discriminatory. So how many of you have job descriptions that say, I need a bachelor's degree or post-secondary education, or I need 10 years of experience? But in reality, you're going to hire someone that has 2 years of experience. What is really you looking for? This goes back to looking back at the job description. What are you looking for? Like, what is your hard nose? What is your absolutely hard nose? That's what goes on there. If you're willing, because fit is so important to you, or if like transferable skills are very important to you, or you're looking at them and they don't really need to have direct experience, don't put that on there, because all they're doing is just self-disqualifying themselves, right? So they're like, I don't have that. I'm not qualified for that. But if it is something that it's a hard no for you. So for instance, like I have a client and it's on our website right now. They must understand agriculture industry. They have to, because they have to write about it. I can't take someone from a different industry, right? Like it's a hard no to them. That's what we have honed in on that job ad. Is everyone good? I feel like I'm just, okay. Okay, social media, let's go into that. What is a social media strategy? So it is not inconsistent, I will tell you that. Like it is work. And you have to, and there's different strategy, and a social media strategy is different platforms. So who is your audience? So for example, with Essence, we use LinkedIn as our platform, because we hire executives, right? So that's where our people are. We use Facebook and Instagram to show where we are in the community, because it's more of that demographic, right? The people on Facebook are not interested in our jobs, but they're interested in what we're doing in the community. So you have to understand what is your strategy, and more doesn't mean better. And I had to learn that with Essence. For years, we spent so much money on Facebook and Instagram, and we had like the results were out of the roof, but we never had one person apply, and we had never had one person become a client. but we do on LinkedIn. We get lots of feedback of like, I saw your job on LinkedIn, or we get our sales from LinkedIn. So, because that's where my audience is. So you got to remember, where is your audience? Where's your demographic, and who are you trying to attract? So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is that you need to be consistent. Just popping up an ad once every like 6 months on your feed, you don't have any followers. So you have to build build followers, right? So that's why when I was saying before, when you're looking at your social media, is it just all about your services and products, or does it have humans in it? Because when you start like talking about your brand and building up your humans, you're wanting people to want to work for you. So that's the intention, is that you are wanting not just people to buy from you, but you want people to work from you. So your strategy has to have some type of recruitment in it. Remember, this is a recruiter saying this, like, I would say that it has to be part of your role. So even as a recruitment firm, we only do job ads on Wednesdays. That's where we're consistent about, like, it's not an everyday thing. We still are giving people other content so they want to read it, but we all do job ads on Wednesdays. So it is becoming our number one kind of referral, I would say, strategy, because social media is so easy to share. So that's the other thing that I would say. So it's a brand. So it's helping your brand, it's helping your sales, and then it's also helping you attract talent, and then it's also helping your referral database. So be consistent, right? Your brand has to be, they need to, like, they may not know your name, but they need to know your logo, like your colors, your logos, clean. So like Instagram and Facebook, they have different measures for their pictures, right? Like, so all of these fun things that I know nothing about. I don't touch this. I would ruin our company if I did our social media. So like, I have someone on contract, right, that does it, because I can't afford to have it in-house. So I've always had social media outside. So, and that was one of the number one things I did when I started Essence, was get someone to do social media, because I don't do what you can't do, because it will not help you. Especially, and it's more complicated than you think. So keep it short. I think you have now 1 to 3 seconds from someone to scroll. So that is no time, right, for you to get attraction from them. So just make sure it's short, it's easy to apply. There's a link for them to go to, like a call to action, absolutely, all the time. Don't assume that they're just going to comment or reply. You have to get them to go somewhere and give them the reason why. So this is where the graphics come into play very importantly. So again, the ability to reach both passive and active candidates. Social media is also one of the best sources for higher quality candidates. Research shows 59% of recruiters rated candidates sourced through social media higher quality. And I would agree with that. Like, we get great referrals and great people apply through just our social media. I would say only 1% of our roles are ever from a job board. So, and it is cheaper, by the way, to go through social media, especially like if Facebook is your place, a lot cheaper than it would ever be through from a job ad that you're spending $300, $400, $500 for. Again, just kind of another example, find the platforms that work for you, promote your culture through employer branding content, targeted job ads. So you could, in Facebook, very little cost, again, that you can boost your ads, you can find your target on your ads, all through the meta in the background. Again, I'm not your person, but ask someone that knows like the complications of that. I just know enough to be dangerous that I can ask the questions of, tell them where I want it to go. Participate in the conversation. So respond, say thank you, like the comments, right? Like respond to the comments, like, share, post. And then the other thing is add value. So tips and tricks also, like, to continue for them to fully, for the search. So a lot of the times in our posts, like, we'll give a tip or trick, not just say apply for this job. Yeah, and then just be experts if you want to have more content or blogs. Again, it's all part of the strategy of recruitment being a piece, but being the brand and like building your brand is all, in our minds, one. So marketing and it just can't be sporadic. It all has to have a flow. and put your job ads and your people as your strategy. So second was referrals. This is how Essence has been built. This is 80% of our organization, of our clients are from referrals, and we get our humans from referrals. So, of course we have to do like everything else. Like we have to market it. We have to, we go out to the networks, we go to the communities, but again, there's internal and there's external. So there's internal referrals, and then like an employee referral program, and then there's your groups and partnerships and using them as referrals. And then eventually what you want people to do is so let's say a partner knows about your job, or like a vendor, or like a connection, that they're referring people to you. So referral means so much. It comes in different avenues, but it is all essentially about relationships. So the first thing I want to talk about is employee referrals. So the thing is that what we forget to do is using our own internals organization. So look internally first, right? So the first thing that people forget, especially as you get larger and larger and you get divisions and you get departments, people forget about their own employees. So looking internally, like first, if you're hiring someone, can someone be promoted? Can someone be moved from a different different division? Can someone be from part-time to full-time? Like look at, do they have the skills and capabilities? That's the number one thing. I'm all about internal promotions, even though that I would go out of business if that happened all the time. I would say for sure, always look internally first. But then if not, you use your employees as the referral database, Now, sometimes they're structured where you give monetary or give rewards for referrals. They can become very complicated. You need to make sure that you have good communication, a good structure. Or there is the unstructured, where it's like the employees love being there so much, they want to have other great people work there, that they're the ones that are going to refer other people, and just be appreciative that you say thank you. So you have to ask your employees what they want. You as a leadership team have to decide if that's what will work within your organization. It is definitely like not one fits all. So it all depends on your organization, and actually in the time of your organization. We've had companies that like 5 years ago would say that their a structured referral program was the best thing they've ever done. And now it's just worn out and they got rid of it. And then people just want to refer people. But the first thing so you just have to look at your situation and always analyze it, right? As part of your strategies on an annual basis. But you do have to ask, like referrals, you kind of do you have to ask the question, because they're so busy in their lives. They're not thinking, oh, this is the top thing on my to-do list, is to refer someone to the company, right? So you need to ask them. But your employees know you better than anybody else. They're the ones that understand your culture. They're the ones that can sell your company. They can tell you what it's like to be there, why they love it, what they don't like, right? So look at them. So Glassdoor, which is also another place where people look for reviews, is anywhere from so let's say if you were referred, like your chances of if someone referred, like let's say you took a referral, your chances of getting them on board is higher if they were referred from someone from your organization than not, because they trust the person that referred them. So again, this can be structured or unstructured, like tips for a good referral program. Decide if it's part of the recruitment process or when it's part of the recruitment process, and when you're getting employees engaged. Like, do you just announce it on a weekly basis that you're looking for someone? What's in it for them? What are the guidelines? How does someone apply? What happens to the person? This is what employees do not like, is when they refer someone and they don't get hired. Well, why not? Right? So then there's this weird communication, because sometimes you can't tell them why not, right? So you have to decide on a communication plan that you still value their referral, but understand that they can't be part of all that process. So there just has to be some type of communication that works within your organization. And then move quickly, make sure communication is happening. If you're rewarding them with a simple thank you, or if there's like a monthly luncheon, whatever that might be, make sure it's in the moment and it's not like on an annual basis, like, oh, in November, this person referred this person, thank you very much. Well, who cares, right? Like it's gone and passed. So just again, remember at the beginning, employees are looking for recognition and praise. This is kind of part of it. They're doing something to impact your organization. Sometimes a thank you is just enough, but you have to find that out what your company wants. Okay, job fairs. They're back. They went away, they're back. And they're becoming, there's two types of job fairs. There's one that you can be part of. So let's say Community Futures puts on a job fair, right? Like you're part of that job fair, or your organization does a job fair, whatever that might be. So we just had a client, they are an agriculture company. They had it out at their yard. And they were looking for entry-level people. So they actually had different ways of getting people bused there. They fed everyone. Like it was a different type, but they filled up their casket of summer employees, right? So their baskets, right, of summer employees. So it just really depends what is the outcome that you're looking for, and what works for you. Because of course, there's time, effort, cost for sure. So you also have to think, do I have to do this in partnership, or does it make sense for me to do it on my own? But it's literally like speed dating for sure, right? Like you have a time and a place and you're trying to attract people and you're going to hire someone, right? So it's like going out on a date and trying to find your next husband. So it takes time. So you need to decide like what's the targeted group you're looking for? Is it internal or external? What works? What makes sense? You pick your team. So think about the last time you either went to a job fair or a trade show, because they're exactly kind of the same setup. When there's one person behind a table and they're on their phone, because they are behind that table because they're not the right person that should be there. They don't either have the right personality. They don't have the right information. They're exhausted because they've been standing there for 3 days. You know, like pick a team. So that usually is like an employee that works there, usually like the hiring manager, someone who can speak to the company, someone who can speak to the role, but it can't be one person that's an introvert that can't talk to people. Pick the date if you can. Wednesdays are the #1 date that you should have a job fair, and then it goes Tuesday, then Thursday, never Monday or Friday. And then if you can, if it's applicable, pick the right location based on your organization and who you're trying to hire. Preparation, some people go in there, again, preparation, they just go in, they have a table and they have like pens, right? Like they have pens, but they don't have any marketing, they don't have any information tools, they don't make it attractive for people to come there. Keep in mind, employee, especially like people that are timid or shy, are not coming to your table, gonna just walk up to you and start talking to you. So you have to make it inviting. I would say get rid of the table, like make it open so you don't separate yourself from the candidates, right? And I know people do run through and they just grab the swag, but it will have to be up to your team and say, hey, like you're here. Why are you here? You know, what can I tell you about our company? And you have to be an ambassador of starting that conversation. So that's the customer experience. Again, keep in mind in being a candidate, how timid is it to walk up to a table, right? So if you can have it open and exciting, you'll have more attraction. Okay, that's it. That's all. That's what I got. I feel like that was a lot of information in like an hour, but
you know what, I think it's great, and thank you. I'll send the slides out. But I mean, these principles can be used, you know, even as a sales team. Like this can be used for so many parts of your business, and taking into consideration that recruiting should be just top of mind, and it often isn't.
no, like it just should be part of your day. Like, I mean, it's easy for me to say this is all we do, but if it just cannot just become a reactive part of your role, and understand that if you're just always going to have a hard time finding people, it just has to become part of your responsibility, right? And it becomes easier if it becomes a proactive approach instead of a reactive approach.
Now, are there any questions from the group?
They might be all sleeping because I talked at them so much that I do way better in person so we can have that conversation. So I hope that it made sense. And I hope people could take a couple nuggets away anyways.
Absolutely. I think it was great. Very informative. A lot of information, but it was very clear, very well presented. So thank you. Yeah, I think if there is no questions, I'll just send a follow-up email out to the group with Tracy's contact information and the slides. Tracy, I was just wondering, I might even be able to just share this in general, if
Yeah.
you don't mind, because I think it's informative and it might be, you know, just a lead for other people to reach out to you guys. I think it's great. The information is very relevant.
Absolutely. I think this was fantastic. It was a lot of information for sure,
Mhm.
but I think it was fantastic. And, I think back to some of those things that I've been involved in and whatnot. And, yeah, what works and what doesn't. So no, I absolutely fantastic
Mhm.
information. Thank you.
And
very
I
much.
think too, like for me personally, I'm always referring people to jobs and things that I see. That's
Yeah.
just the nature of my personality, but I'm always saying to people, apply anyways, apply anyways. And they're like, oh, but you know what it's saying? I'm like, just apply anyways. If you think that you could be a good fit and you can do the job, apply. And I mean, I think that so many organizations need to get away from complicated job descriptions because it really throws people off and they're not going to get the qualified applicant when there's just a whole bunch of stuff in there that shouldn't be there.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah, that is a big thing for sure,
yes.
right? And I mean, and we've done it. Like we did, like for example, we were looking for an engineer on behalf of our client, and they were pretty adamant about like these years of experience because they wanted them to come with like this in-depth knowledge. But in reality, the guy that they hired was 2 years in, but he just had what they were looking for, right? So
Mhm.
so lots of people self-disqualify, especially engineers, they're pretty technical. They like
Mhm.
information, and so they self-disqualify themselves, right? So
Mhm. And some people really are like that. They go through and check all the boxes and make sure that they, and we're
yeah.
our own worst critic, right? So I think it really needs to be, the switch needs to be flipped the other way to just really attract people in.
Yeah.
Someone I had as a mentor one time, they kind of talked about, you can hire for attitude, but you can train for all the rest, right? So that's
Mhm.
skills. And I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not for brain surgery and things like that, but
Yeah.
for many, it's more about hiring the right person for the bus rather than teaching them how to drive. And then you can teach them how to drive the bus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%.
No, this
Well,
was
thank you,
excellent.
Tracy. This is great. So we appreciate your time. And you're not back until the new year with us again, but hopefully we can share this workshop with other people.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank
Okay.
you. Have a
Thanks,
great
everyone.
day. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.